Hello everyone, welcome to episode 65 of FPL BlackBox. No Mark tonight, we wish him all the best. He's in the chat. He's had another spell of vertigo last night, so he did all the prep, got everything ready for me, dropped it all in, but unfortunately can't be here. But would you call yourself a pretty good understudy for Mark, Luke? I would.
Well, thank you. I don't know what I'd call myself, to be honest, but thanks for having me on. And yeah, big shoes to fill, but I shall try my best.
I mean, I said this to you before we came on. I don't know what face cream you're using or what. You look 10 years younger than last time I saw you. What is going on?
Less stress, you see. No podcasts. Not worrying about FPL. Taking that weight off my shoulders. Just playing carefree. Yeah, it's a good remedy, I think, for the skin. Maxing relaxing, shooting some b-ball.
We can't talk about Will Smith already, can we?
I was hoping you got that. No, let's move on quickly.
Of course. Yeah. Anyway, how you doing? I mean, Top Guns reunited for it's always nice when we do a podcast together. How you been anyway? When's the last time we did one? We did one about a month or so ago, didn't we? Yeah.
But the next Top Gun's coming out. We should go watch that.
I know. Yeah. Did we ever decide who was Maverick?
Well, obviously me. You're just playing so template right at the top of the league. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Although
I've crashed and burned though. To be fair, I've not quite Tom Cruised it.
You're like Iceman, right? He crashed and burned.
Yeah. Let's move on. Yeah.
Right, we've got loads to talk about today. I say we've got loads to talk about. We've got the worst double game week ever to cover. We're going to try and sell you some of their options. I think we're going to find it pretty hard to do. It's Everton and Burnley with the double. I mean, you're all expecting it to be bad, and it is really bad, but we're going to try and do our best to say the likes of Veghorst and Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison and these guys. I don't think Luke's going to be having any of it. We've got some scheduling stuff to do. So we've got we've got a really nice graphic showing teams and their fixtures going forward to the end of the season, because we're at that kind of business end as well. We've got all the normal stuff, great and the good. We've got our Gameweek 30 teams to look back on, which seems like bloody age ago. That's a rubbish game week as well. And then we'll be talking about our plans going forward. Although, as we were talking about off air, Luke, neither of us really know what we're doing, so good luck.
No, not much has changed there on my account. Delia's saying, can you turn me up, because apparently I'm quiet and you can't hear me, so I don't know if you can do that.
Up? I can do that. Let me just work out how. Yes, okay, right. You should be up a bit. Let me know in the chat if that is any better.
Yeah, shout at us.
Yeah, just shout us out. Let me just move this over. Lovely. Okay, right. Let's get stuck in then. Hang on. So I've pressed the buttons and everything's gone.
And Mark's in the chat as well. He was slagging you off, Mark. He was saying he knows what he's doing, but that's not lasted very long.
Amateur hour in here. Right, it's fine. Right, let's go. Okay, game week 30. Let's review, if you can cast your mind back that far. You got 49 points. You had Ramsdale in goal, who didn't play. You had Doherty, Tierney and Sace. Tierney did well, to be fair. Ramsey, Saka, Coutinho, Kulusevski, Broja, Jimenez and Kane. So you went in with 10. You must have been pretty confident with that. Then Ramsdale didn't play, so you ended up with 9. 49 though, decent enough score.
Yeah, it's okay. It was a bit of a nothing week, wasn't it? I had a triple up on Spurs, so obviously not free hitting. Basically the only person I wanted to not do well was Son. Obviously he did do well. But Kane captain came in. Saka's been great for me. Tierney's been a little bit disappointing, but in general, just because I expected him to get more attacking output in the last few weeks. But he's been sheltered a bit since Tomiyasu has been missing out on the right back, I feel. So yeah, I can't complain. I mean, it's the captain hit, so that's fair enough. Jimenez's red card was obviously very disappointing, but a lot of us suffered that. Yeah, not much else to say. We can't expect much when you've got Salah, Robertson and Trent on your bench. It's a super expensive one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've got to be honest, I wasn't expecting this game week to be, we love this term variance. I wasn't expecting there to be so much variance as there was on this week. I mean, I saw scores upwards of 70, 73. And I saw some people with scores of like 9 who like barely got any players out, So I think free hitters kind of, it went the best for them as it could have done, because they had the bench players to come on and sort of hoovered up those extra points. They probably all had Son, Kane, Saka, and probably anyone who didn't free hit probably only had 2 of those 3, or most people did. So it turned out it was quite a good week to free hit, I think. And I think a lot of people who gained 30, 40 points will be pretty pleased with that. I didn't think it would be that much difference, to be fair. But
no, it's basically having that Son and Kane double up is the main thing, isn't it? If you got on that, and there was a few, like I think Johnny from Wolves was a decent option for a free hit pick. Yeah, he's a decent free hit pick, to be fair. But yeah, so as ever, you just need everything to fall your way on an individual game week, and when there's fewer games, there's obviously less of a pool to pick, and most of the good players did well, so fair play.
Yep, absolutely. My game week, I got 54. The only real difference, I think, mainly between our teams is I had Barnes, who got me an extra 5 points from your 49. Ramsdale in goal, no backup. Dubravka as well, who obviously didn't have a game, but is now yellow flagged. I might even have a goalkeeper for next week, which will be really annoying. I had Doherty, 8 Nori, same as you're saying, taking any points from him. Amity was really frustrating because they had a clean sheet up until the 85th minute, and then he conceded. Coutinho, Saka, Kulusevski, Barnes, pretty template. Kane, captain, Lacazette, and the mighty Hwang, who came off my bench for 1 point, who might play next game with him and Az out, should play, but he never actually does anything, which is a bit of a problem, really, when you've got a player like that.
It's a little bit of a problem, yeah, when your players don't get any points. I've noticed that, yeah. Yeah,
bless him. He tries. He's a trier, but he doesn't ever really succeed. And I've got the bench boost coming up, so I need to kind of ship out some of these Wolves players because I'm thinking about using it in 33.
I hate that chip. I would hate to have that stress on my mind, to be honest.
Me too. It's why I kind of didn't really think about it, and I went for Amity. I basically went for Amity, 8 Nori, and Hwang as the bench options, and then it felt good at the time, and now I'm getting closer to having to use it, and I'm like, I don't want to bench boost these three.
It's kind of the last thing you want to be thinking of, I think, especially towards the back end of the season, where you want to be putting. It's going to be hard enough with rotation and stuff, and you kind of want to focus your thoughts, right? And when you've got the bench boost, you have to take into account. Well, I suppose you always have to take into account your full 15, but more so.
I know. So, I hate it.
But it's good to have a chip that could potentially get you some points if you get it right. So
it's going to get me 10 points. Let's be honest.
Well, with that bench, yeah.
Yeah, but every point is useful at this stage. Even Hwang's 1 point of my bench is useful. Mark, 53 points, but took a 4-point hit. Much of the same. Ramsdale, Sace, Tierney, Doherty. Salah, Saka, Kulusevski, Coutinho. He bought in Podence, which was an interesting move for him as part of a 4-point hit. But he did what he said he wasn't going to do on BlackBox. I managed to talk him into swapping Son out for Kane. And of course, Son comes in with a brace. But
skills.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't much in it. And I think, Podence made up for the 4-point hit. And I think you've got to be happy with Kane going forward right over Son. So I think it was it was the move that I said he should do, and he did it, and he probably lost out on a few points. But I think long-term, Kane outscores Son, and there's better midfielders as well.
It's more a structural thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're obviously both great. It's just there's not many great forwards, and there's quite a few midfielders. So it does make sense long-term to have it that way if you can. Podence, though, he's the original all fart no poo man, isn't he? And there he is. One of the originales. And
he's even got Podence in his name.
Exactly, classic. Such a pocket live wire, so much potential, but just very much doesn't deliver most of the time. Anyway.
Yeah, they're so frustrating, and Rafinha's entering into that bracket now. The pain he's causing. The pain he's causing, I don't know. He's a frustrating one. But yeah, I think Mark's sort of climbing up the ranks. You've been climbing up the ranks because you were well behind Mark, right?
God. Yeah,
I'm slightly ahead of him now.
I am slightly ahead of him. Thank you for pointing that out. I was going to do it myself, but you saved me the trouble. I've been going up. I mean, it's not hard. I was doing pretty badly. I had a lot of. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and bemoan my luck, but you've given me the opportunity. Stuff like Salah captain versus Leicester, and he misses a penalty for 0.
Yeah.
Just some of those things. You just on those individual weeks, when there's those sort of particular calls where his EO was incredibly low there. The one time Salah's points probably matter the whole season, and it doesn't come through for you. It's quite frustrating, but. Yeah, dropped quite a lot, and then worked my way back up to around 100k in the last few weeks, mainly due to the chips. Though I'm not under any illusion that it's any other reason. I've been using the chips, so that's why. I've still got 1 free hit left, but I've used everything else. Didn't triple captain Salah. I did the wild card on that week, so that couldn't have gone much worse on that individual week. But since then, I think just having the extra fixtures, more focused team, easy to use my transfers, it's kind of worked out okay. But yeah, it always feels a bit of a bummer when from the first 3, I think it was 20k after game week 3, because I had Antonio and Benrahma basically. So when you always start off so well, it's great because you've got that platform, haven't you, to have a great season. and you feel like you can crack on and fire up the rankings even more. But then to go from that and then drop, now I'm all this way along and I'm only 100k now, so I'm not as good as I was in Game Week 3. So it just feels bad, even though it's an okay rank these days. I think 100k, not maybe amongst the content creators and everyone who wants to do really well is watching this, but I think out of 9 million people, 100k, it's not that bad, is it? I don't have to.
I've got to be honest. I thought you were like 400k.
Oh, really?
It was only
Cheers,
when I checked, it's only when I checked your rank. I was like, oh, he's doing really well. He's massively climbing up the rankings.
Well, really well is a bit strong, but I'm doing okay. Doing okay.
Yeah. So what's your kind of target then for the rest of the season? I mean,
to be honest,
you could push
I never
on
have
to 50k, right?
I suppose I could, but I don't really ever have a target. I don't really play it that way. I play multiple fantasy games, as you know, and I'm doing better in others, so my focus is more on them. And as high as I can finish is great, but yeah, for me, if I'm not putting out regular content, I don't need to sell myself or whatever. I just want to try and win the game. Now that's never going to happen, isn't it? But that's always the goal, to try and do that. So yeah, obviously not going to happen this season. We'll try again over and over for the rest of my life until I die.
God, it's depressing when you put it like that, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
what we're all going to do.
Yeah.
Let's touch on the great and the good. So I am still top. I'm now ahead of Fabio by quite a bit, about 41 points. So yeah, really happy with that. I went up one place in the rankings. I was so close to that elusive grey arrow, but went up one place. Mark is climbing. He's overtaken Joe and Tom. He is 1 point behind Neil, 2 points ahead of Joe. I'm not sure how he's doing in the Elite 64, but he's trying not to get relegated from that. We did 2 free hits played in the great and the good, and that was from FPL Matthew and Les Caldwell. Pretty much everyone went for Kane. There was a couple of Sons. Magnus, of course, going differential on Barnes, which didn't pay off this time.
No, it didn't pay off this time. I think it was last week with the Robertson one that it paid off. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's gone. He's gone like full Maverick at the moment. I mean, the Robertson captain, a few weeks ago, and then and now Barnes. He's clearly trying to push up and making differential calls. So
yeah, he's basically like who I want to be.
Yeah.
Like he's basically me, but it works like somehow. Like
I think we all want to be Magnus Carlsen.
This is true. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, there's some good ranks on the great and the good this year. I mean, last year, obviously Mark was near the top, or but it was quite a difference between kind of the top and the bottom. I mean, everyone, including yourself, was sort of in the top 120-ish K. We got 3 people in the top 10k, and then everything else is really kind of clustered around. So there could be lots of movement in this. I don't really know, because I would say it's a normal, back to being a bit of a normal season and people can plan again, but it wasn't really over Christmas, was it? So I don't know. I found last year was I just couldn't get a handle on it. Everything I was doing was going wrong. I don't think I've done anything particularly different this time around in terms of strategy, and still picking players I think going to score well and ignoring EO and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't really know. I mean, maybe there's just been kind
more
of more
information,
obvious.
more focus. There's a lot of, like you say, a lot of, I don't know. I think part of it is the fact that the template team in the first few weeks was ridiculously good. Like Absolutely. I say, I was like 20k in Game Week 3. And I think most people around there, all you had to do was have Antonio or one of Antonio, Benrahma, or even Greenwood, I think. Especially if you had all 3, which quite a few people did. They did really well. But yeah,
I mean, you had Salah pretty much every week as captain. There's been kind of players that have come in for the majority. I mean, it's different for each person. I mean, Mark would say it's been a really challenging season because he's got players in who haven't delivered, got them out, and then they have performed. Like, he's been so unlucky with the likes of Reece James. I mean, he's cool players like Mbomo at the start who looked really good and then sort of floundered. He's tried to be ahead of the curve on quite a few things and struggled. I mean, Mark's like love affair with Reguilon this season, for example. I mean, Reguilon was a perfectly valid pick, and it's got nothing for him whatsoever. So, I'm not saying
stats are still really good.
I know,
he's still really high up there. He still looks a good pick, so I feel for him. Yeah. Mark's had a lot of bad outcomes, and obviously outcomes will always dictate it. But I think it's a combination of just like the obvious names, like you said, have done pretty well consistently. Yeah. Salah captain across the season. Most people are going to do that.
And it's that good start as well. I think because I was like 2 or 3 million, I think, by game week 7 or 8 last season, and I was up at like 3. It's much easier when you're like 200,000-300,000 to claw it back, even at that stage almost after 5 or 6 weeks, your target's almost changed from I'm going to win it to oh crap, I need to get into the top like 100k, kind of another season like last year. In terms of transfers and hits, you'll be delighted to know that you've taken the most out of all the great and the good this season, which will come as no surprise.
I thought I actually tried to calm down on that front this season.
Really?
Obviously not.
Well, you've taken minus 76 worth of hits. Yavers is the next highest with minus 68, and he's way higher of the next one, which is Joe on 52. So you're taking almost double the amount of hits of most people in the great and the good, and you think you've reined them in.
I'll be honest, I don't feel like I've taken that many. I think it is sometimes self-serving, right? Sometimes you do have bad enough luck where you're forced to do these situations. Like, obviously, if I look at my team and it's okay, I wouldn't just take a hit for no apparent reason. Or maybe sometimes. But you get what I'm saying. If you do have those weeks where you end up getting a lot of injuries or COVID or whatever else happens, then obviously it's going to make you use more hits, right? And if you're just coasting, then that's what happens. I mean, it's stuff like, not necessarily linked to hit, but for you in particular, I think your season, you were all around the same level as us, and then you decided to get the likes of Smith Rowe, Martinelli, and Ramsdale in for Arsenal's run before they were template, and they just the output from those three at that time, ahead of the template before it was a template, absolutely smashed it, and it just took you straight up into the upper echelons, and you just seem to have sort of ridden that wave ever since. Where, I didn't have any Arsenal for that period, for example, and it's just a big change straight away.
I mean, Smith Rowe was getting me points off the bench. That was the moment when it gets stupid. You can kind of claim good. Oh, that's a really good decision, and then I get 2 weeks in a row where Smith Rowe scores, and you and Mark in the BlackBox WhatsApp just like, oh, for God's sake, Az, not again.
That was ridiculous, the Smith Rowe thing. I mean, now he doesn't even get into their first team when they've got all their players fit, which is always the worry. Always what I thought would be the case anyway. It's just annoying when the outcome doesn't go that way. But.
Yeah. I mean, you have got the second highest squad value. I'm just behind Zophar, 105.8. So I guess that's one of the benefits of taking lots of hits. You can build that team value up quite a lot. Captain wise, you've been doing really well. 570. It's equal with Magnus Carlsen. Puts you in kind of the the upper echelons of that. Do you feel like you've been making better captain choices, or is it mostly just been?
No,
you're the Maverick manager, but you've mostly been captaining Salah, haven't you?
I've mostly been captaining Salah. Yeah, I never do it just to be Maverick. I do it if I genuinely think that someone can outscore him. I think I'm more open than most to captaining the likes of Cancelo, Trent, and James, Chilwell. I mean, I'm doing pretty well in the captain thing you said there, but I didn't captain Salah for his hat trick and his assist, which would take me even higher, obviously.
Take you top,
Would it take me top? Okay, so I captained Chilwell that week, for example, who got a goal, clean sheet, and he was first in the game week. Right. And I thought, I'm smashing this. Salah away to Man United, you got no chance. I've pulled an ace out there, but no, it wasn't to be. Generally just captains Salah. It's been pretty boring because he's generally been the best captain every week, hasn't he? So there's nothing more to really say on that.
That's great, Eric.
Sorry, I'd like to just do some randomness, but aside from the odd Cancelo, I mean, I've got Cancelo for his, was it 30 points or something?
You did,
I got that one, so that would have buffed me back up actually. But
yeah, nice. The other great and the good is just with like chips remaining as well. So I've got 2 chips. Basically, everyone in the great and the good and yourself have all got at least 1 chip remaining. I've got 2. Only FPL Matthew's got 3. He's got a wild card and 2 free hits, I believe. Am I reading that right? No, triple captain and a free hit, sorry. You've got 1 chip left, so you've just got another free hit to use. We're going to talk about when you're thinking of using that, because I also kind of want to know. You're thinking about 33, though, right? As a bit of a spoiler.
Yeah, I think so. Just because it feels like that one's a little bit worse, and generally I'm sort of conditioned to use a free hit in like a blank or a worse week, because then I don't want to get the players into my team and then have to deal with them afterwards. So that just feels right to me, but I'm not set on it yet. Yep.
Cool. Mark's also got 1 chip left, free hit like me. I think we're both thinking about 36, and we're just going to try and get through 33. But I mean, that's where this kind of strategy gets a little bit interesting, because like we're going to talk about in a minute, where the chip strategy of 26 particularly took people down completely different paths. There's still sort of potential this season for that to happen as well. If people have got bench boost and free hit left, you use it in 33, 36, maybe 37. Some people might like to save it till 38 and get a final push on the last day. So there's still lots of different ways we can go. And then when it comes to strategy, it's the players that we get will be determined by when you want to play those chips. So if you want to target your Chelsea and your Man City players, you might be more likely to play the free hit in 33, because then you'll get those doubles coming in 36. Otherwise, you could target, sort of dead ending your team with crappy 33 options. And Arsenal players, I think Arsenal have got a good run. And then you free hit into 36 with a really powerful, probably triple Chelsea, triple City, triple Liverpool kind of thing. So yeah, different strategies, which we'll cover a little bit more. Speaking of chip tracking, I've bought this back. Basically, the Gameweek 26, for anyone who doesn't know, to me, it was one of the highlights of the season. It was, it was proper like Friday night panic. A load of doubles got dropped in, and everyone was so set on Salah triple captain. And then people started panicking and building wildcard teams and sort of adopting different strategies. And some people stayed quite true to the original plan. Other people, massively changed and tore everything up. Mark went down the wildcard route. I stayed with the triple captain. So I thought it'd be quite nice to do a bit of analysis into how this is kind of going for people. So what I did was I just grabbed sort of 15 random managers from Twitter, 15 who wildcard in 26, 15 who then triple captained in 26. I've just been tracking and see how well they're doing. It's been really even. If you look at this graph, there's really not that many points in it at all. The triple captain has got off to the best start, 141 points. Game week 27, which was the blank, which was when a lot of wildcarders free hitted. Wasn't much in it though, 56 to 53. It wasn't a great week to free hit that, so that's why those scores are so close. 28, interestingly, the wildcarders outscored the triple captainers, which I found surprising because I free hitted in that week and got like 130 points or whatever. But actually, not many people followed that strategy. There's actually quite a few chips played out of the 15 that I looked at in that week, whereas the wildcarders pretty much all bench boosted. And the bench boost were mostly Arsenal players. So Saka, who was in loads of teams.
Yeah, I did exactly that.
Yeah, the defender, didn't pay off, but like Lacazette was popular as well, who got 8. So, that kind of worked out well. So I think if you didn't free hit, then the wildcarders got a big edge, but obviously the ones who did free hit got to tap into all the Chelsea points and Coutinho and those kind. And then since then, it's been pretty even. 29, the wildcarders 99, triple captains 100. And then game week 30, the wildcard is 52 to 49. So again, not huge amounts in it. What is interesting though, well, I thought it was interesting. You might disagree. This just shows my spreadsheet that I've been tracking it on.
Well, before I see it, no, because you said spreadsheet. But go on.
Yeah, I know. So I could see my eyes glazing over already. Basically, just ignore all the numbers and the things. Basically, the different colours on this chart just represent the chips that have been used. So the blue is the wild card, the yellow is the free hit, the green is the bench boost, and the red is triple captain. So for the wild carders, it's been a really clear strategy across all the 15 managers that I looked at. It's been wild card, then free hit, then bench boost, then triple captain. Right, that's pretty much the strategy that everyone.
Exactly what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a strategy that you kind of did with that wild card. You had that idea to plan, and this is what Mark was talking about last time. He was like, he bought into this idea of this amazing strategy over a 4-week period that it would lock it in and there'd be no flexibility. When you look at the triple captainers though, it's this isn't the right chart. After all that build up, hang on, because I've got the right chart. Where is it?
I can't even see what you're looking at, can I? So I can't even help you out. I can't even dig you out here.
No, you can't. That's right.
That's the wrong expression.
You can't do it. Oh, there it is. Sorry, everyone. I don't know how that's happened, how it's put the wrong chart in. This is going to be great for the audio listeners. There you go. That's the triple captain chart. You can see it's just so much more varied in terms of what people are doing. You've got like a couple of free hits in 27, but nowhere near as many as the wildcarders. And then in 28, you had a bit of everything. You had a couple of bench boosts, you had a couple of wildcards being played, a couple of free hits. And then in 29, sort of barely any chips being played. And then again in 30. So the triple captains have got a lot more chips left because they've sort of used a lot less. And it's like there wasn't really a kind of strategy with it. It was just it's basically a very organized wildcard strategy of I'm going to do this, and this versus I'm just going to wing it and kind of see what happens. And I just think it's interesting because that's the kind of flexibility side that a lot of people talk about, right? It's where do you sit? It's good to have a plan, but you need to be a bit flexible. And I think going forward, the triple captainers are in a better place because there's not much in it, but they've got more chips left. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks that way. I think quite a lot of popular people or content creators and stuff that I've seen are triple captains Salah and have still got a few chips left. So at the end of the day, we can't really evaluate any of this until the end of the season, can you? And I think there's two ways to look at it as well, as comparatively to the rest of the field, but then also the gains that it made specifically for your team on that particular week as well. So
Yeah.
it's very hard to judge, but ultimately the triple captain Salah, you couldn't have asked for a better result, could you, in that particular week? So it's an obvious outcome, to be fair. So you can't even sit here and go, "Oh, that was lucky," because the games
Yeah.
dictated that it should have been good. But let's say that did fail, things could be very different in terms of the outcome. Everyone will be saying that the wildcard strategy was the way to go. So no matter how much you look at it, it always ends up being slightly outcome biased, I think, a lot of these
Absolutely.
plays.
It does.
But yeah, no one can sit here and deny that Salah was. I mean, I don't think we've been presented as good a triple captain opportunity since the chip came in, have we? So it was a very obvious play. If you had it.
I think as well, you talk about the outcome, like sort of Game Week 26. I just think it was so interesting because both strategies got off to such a strong start. Like there didn't seem to be much in it. I mean, you look at the averages here: wildcard 130, triple captain 141. I mean, that's not a huge amount in it.
No, but you would expect the wild card to be a more powerful chip overall. And maybe in that individual week, yeah, triple captain would outscore a wild card most of the time. And that's what happened. But the beauty of the wild card was that whole plan. I know it didn't quite. I mean, some of the outcomes were pretty bad, I thought, across that fall. But because of the sheer volume of fixtures that you had for your players, it ended up sort of just accumulating and being okay. It matched it and it did all right. And then obviously, like you say, that one there. Which game week is it? Game week 28, where you used the free hit. That's where it obviously brought it back a little bit, and it's been okay. It's just the main thing is it solved a big headache. For a lot of the teams, it did depend what sort of situation your team was in. I could have just triple captained Salah, but I had a team that wouldn't have carried me through for the rest of those weeks particularly well. I would have had to take even more hits. If I followed that strategy, my hits would have been crazy because I'd have had to jump on some of the double players, which people did, and that can work, but. It kind of just solved the headache. It did make sense as a path, to follow that, and that's why a load of people do it. I don't buy this whole panic. A load of content creators do it. Let's do it. You do it because we've all given the same information, and it looks like a very sensible play to make that move. Especially for someone whose team wasn't that great in that individual week. It's not our fault either. I mean, we always knew fixtures were going to come, but they came at such late notice and just thrown straight in, didn't they? So, you have to react to the information in this game.
Yep. I just want to give a shout out to Costas Chatziz, who was a Game Week 26 triple captainer. So he's on my team, if you'd like. He got 13 points this week and a -4.
I shouldn't laugh, but it makes me feel better. So thanks,
and
mate.
he captained Jimenez.
Oh God.
Yeah. So yeah. It cost us if you're listening.
Stay strong.
Stay strong. Exactly. Yep. Okay, let's talk. That's enough looking back. Let's kind of look forward. So this is a really, really sexy graphic on the screen. Apologies if you're listening on the podcast version. If you're listening to the podcast version, I'd urge you to check out at a Bonballon, which is ABONBALLON on Twitter. And he's put this lovely chart together. And what this chart shows is all the teams, all the fixtures remaining in the Premier League, but
it's
also...
a she, by the way. I just want to interrupt you. I'm pretty sure it's a she. I'm pretty sure it is.
Literally says Adriana on the screen. Apologies, apologies, Adriana. Ballon.
Shame on you, Az.
Adriana Bonballon. Yeah, that's... good spot. Thank you. Anyway, it's all 20 teams and it's their fixtures, not only in the Premier League, but it's also their kind of potential cup games and it's the Champions League games and the European games for other teams in it. So there's quite a lot to dissect it. I mean, what is really interesting is the Liverpool-Man City game, which is in Game Week 32. That is sandwiched in between, obviously, the Champions League games for Liverpool, right? So, what... And City. So what... what do you make of that? Like, what do Liverpool do? What do they prioritise? Do they just go full strength? They have to go full strength in all those games, right? What does that mean?
Yeah, well, you could say what's full strength for Liverpool look like now because they've improved their team a lot, haven't they? I would say a lot. They've brought in Diaz, and just moving forward for next season and stuff. That's going to be tough now with Firmino, Diaz, Salah, Mane, and Jota. But anyway, that's going off on a tangent. I think not just them, I think everyone, it really brings home, I think this is really impressive work. I just really like stuff where it helps you visualise it like this.
Yeah.
It just shows you the amount of games and important games. It brings it home, especially those top three teams, which are obviously amongst the most appealing teams to bring players in for, because they're the best teams, obviously. have got all these really important games tied, all around it. And you have to think, given the size of the squads in some of those teams, that they're going to have to utilise them. That's why these teams accumulate these squads, isn't it? So they can try and compete on all fronts. I mean, that's literally what they tell us. They want to win all the competitions, and they bring them in. So I haven't got a magic book when it comes to Klopp. He generally rotates a lot less than some of the others, but I think you'd probably have to expect the odd one here or there that might miss out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark's in the chat saying it's it's about squad sort of management as well. So
100% keeping people happy. Yeah. They play for these games, don't they? You've got you've got a lot. I mean, and it's also protection from injury. Some people say, "Oh, they've had a rest, they haven't played for a while." But if they get injured in a game, if Man City play some players against Burnley, they play Kevin De Bruyne when they could win without him, and he gets an injury and he's out for the rest of the season. That can stop. That can literally end their season for them. Literally, they're far more likely to win games with De Bruyne and Cancelo in their team, aren't they? And they're going to need him for those other games. So that's just an example. And Chelsea, I don't even know where to begin on that. I mean, they're worse than Pep this season, aren't they, with their rotation? So it's a concern, it's a worry, because not a lot of the other teams, probably outside the likes of Spurs and Arsenal, maybe Leicester, but they're also in that boat, I guess, are that appealing for the end of the season. I think a lot of the appealing players are coming from these top teams where the minutes is a risk. It feels like a bit of a lottery.
Yeah. What I like about this shot as well is it helps you visualise a bit later on, so 36 and 37. I mean, if things kind of fall into place, you could have a double game week of City with Newcastle Wolves, Liverpool with Tottenham Villa, Chelsea with Wolves, and then one of Leicester and Leeds. So that's like three, that's the top three teams, all with like a really, really nice fixture. Arsenal could get Leeds and Spurs, which again is, the London derby, anything can happen, and then Leeds at home is a great fixture. Spurs could have a double, which doesn't look that great, Liverpool and Arsenal. These are like the top kind of top five sides, all with a really, really nice double. And then you've got the likes of Villa, with Burnley, Liverpool, Leicester, with Everton, Chelsea. There's loads of potential here, isn't there? I think for that. That's why I think the free hit, I'm looking at using it in that week, because if we do get confirmation that these games go ahead, there's going to be a massive pool of players to select from.
There is that, but just slightly to offset it, I do think the further you go along that list, and a lot of this is dependent on how they've done, because like for example, if Man City go out in the quarterfinals against Atletico, things change, right? We don't know that information yet. The same can be said for Liverpool and Chelsea, so things can change. But I think the further you go to the right on that chart, the more you start opening yourself up. Well, will the player play two games? The games just become too important in and around it, and they have got the squads, like we've just said. So that's why it feels like it feels okay to me, or at least give myself some comfort to say I've used my chips and generally I got my players to actually play. We don't necessarily know that's going to be the case later, and I think that's where the risk comes in with a little bit around the minutes. I think once we get there, we'll be more able to identify it because of who's gone out. But it's a little bit of a concern. I mean, in 38, you often see some kids play, don't you, depending on where people's position is. But yeah, I can't deny that it looks very appealing, and the free hit, the appeal is obviously to hand pick literally the best options in terms of who's going to get the most minutes from those teams and stuff. Whereas I might have 3 City in my team by then, but I might have the best 3 in terms of the expected minutes or whatever. And we've got injuries and everything else to come as well.
I mean, it's very when you look at City. I mean, they've got such a good run: Burnley, Liverpool, Brighton, Watford, Leicester. But then, as this chart really clearly shows, they've got Champions League, FA Cup. You're still in those competitions. I mean, Chelsea have got a brilliant run as well. Brentford, Southampton, Arsenal, West Ham, Everton. But
are they good enough where you just say, well, I don't care because they're still so much better than everyone else?
That's the question.
I'm of the opinion, yes. Like,
I mean, you're the City lineup expert. What does Pep do?
Well, you can only ever answer the game just in front of you, which is a cliche, but with Pep, it's very much true. Because you don't know. With Pep, he plays mostly on form, doesn't he? So if a load of his players play horrifically versus Burnley, they're no longer assured to play the next game. So there is some merit in what I'm saying. Specifically, if you want to talk about Man City at this point, there has been a pattern this season for Man City, which you can go and check yourselves. Basically, anytime there's been an international break, and not always, so sometimes if there's not been one, the game before a Champions League tie is when you will see the most rotation in his team. You'll see rotation outside of just the form of the player and maybe the opponent, because when I say the opponent, sometimes, for example, like I imagine he would this week, he uses a centre-back at a full-back position. So I'd expect Ake to be at full-back because of the aerial threat that Burnley pose. He did that in the reverse fixture, for example, right? So you've got the tactical element of it. you've got the form element of it, but then also when there's a game before a Champions League, he has thrown in some random rotations. So the likes of Diaz has missed out when he was nailed previously. You've seen De Bruyne when he was playing like versus Norwich. You saw Cancelo miss out. Any of the games where the Champions League tie has been important, I should add, because they were already qualified as group winners for the round 6 of 6, and they won 5-0 versus Sporting in one of the legs, so the second leg wasn't important. So on both occasions, they didn't really rotate. Virtually all the other ones, there's been a little bit. So it's a worry because, yes, they've had a break. Yes, they want to compete for the league and they want to get every point. But the bottom line is the reserve team could beat Burnley, couldn't they? And look at Foden. I think he's played like 14, 15 games in a row. And I say he's nailed in the Man City team. Whenever he's fit and not been naughty, he plays. But if he's going to play his best team and his best players in the coming games, that means he's going to play home and away versus Atletico, versus Liverpool in the league, and versus Liverpool in the FA Cup. That's 4 games in a row. It's suddenly going to go to 19, 20 games in a row for Foden or whatever it is. Where's the opportunity to rest him? The only one really is the Burnley game, isn't it? I'm not saying he is going to get a rest, but it's a red flag game for me. This is a worry of a game for Man City. Like, it's a typical high risk, high reward because I think their record versus Burnley is incredible. Like, you'd expect them to win sort of 3, maybe even 4-0, but getting the right players for it, and I include Cancelo in that, is going to be quite tricky, I think, because there's certainly no guarantee, especially if he's going to play Ake at left back. That means it's one of Walker and Cancelo at right back. I'd like to say Cancelo plays, but Walker's suspended for the first game of the Champions League. So logically it makes sense to play Walker in that game, but
I would love that. I would love that if Cancelo misses out and Ake comes in at the left back.
I still think Cancelo will play. I just want to add, I think I'll probably put him in my predicted team, but I think I wouldn't buy him this week because I think it's enough of a worry to not have him. You can only, and like I say, if you follow the pattern and look back at Man City, you can see it for yourself. Forget the fact they can beat in, forget the fact they've had a little bit of a break or their minutes and stuff. It's about protecting them from injury as well and the run to come. When else is he going to get the opportunity?
Yeah. The other sort of interesting sort of congested fixtures are all with West Ham and Leicester, who are sort of still in the Europa League. I mean, if let's say they reach the final, they're basically going to be playing 2 games, a week. I mean, Leicester have got so many doubles to be rearranged. They could have United and then the Europa League in 31, then Palace in Europa League in 32, Newcastle, Everton, Villa, Europe, Tottenham, Europe, Everton, Chelsea, Watford, Norwich, Southampton, Europe. I mean, this is a lot of games for them. Defence, we're already seeing players coming back. Evans, Fofana, Justin, Pereira. You'd assume that's kind of the first choice. But then you've got Castagna, Amity, Soyuncu. Lots of options there. So Schmeichel's the only real option in defence. But then what do you think about the likes of like Maddison and Barnes? Because
again, it's just because they've got that extra volume of games. If they do miss out on the odd one, it only brings them level with the other players anyway.
That's true. Yeah, that's
so
true.
I feel like you can still take that risk because they're still the better options overall in general. That's the way I look at that. But it's also again like we can't plan for it, but he changes the way the team sets up. All of those players have got injury knocks all the time, like Maddison, Barnes, stuff like that. They constantly seem to pick them up after they get going. I know you can't bank on that happening, but it is a slight concern. I mean, it's hard to pick out who the best Leicester options are just across their team, really. Like you say, you could look at several players in different positions there and make a case for them. But I still think it's worth probably jumping on 1 or 2 just for the volume of fixtures, and you just have to hope that they get more than you expect. But
it has to be Barnes, right? Because you're not going to go near Vardy even if he's back, because he's not going to be able to play two in a week. And they're probably going to prioritise Europe if they're going to play their strongest team. Maddison has had this injury all season, so I don't think he's really an option. It's why I didn't really go for him on the wild card or after for the blank. I mean, Barnes seems to me the only player that is likely to play the majority of these matches.
I thought you were going to say Maddison, such as you are, but yeah.
I love him. I want him, obviously, but I just think they need to wrap him up in cotton wool a little bit because he's shown all season that he there was a point when he was playing 2 or 3 matches, then he just broke down again.
Yeah. I'm definitely drawn to Barnes over all of them. I think with him, yes, he's had some injury problems in the past, but I think he's still their most direct threat from open play. I mean, I've not looked at the stats to back that up, but that's the impression I get. Yeah. That he's still, and generally when he's been fit, I think he's generally played most of the season. So he would be the player I'd go to. But like you say, if their focus is suddenly Europe, do they then give him the break in the league? Maybe.
Yeah.
But then even if he drops 1 or 2 games, it brings it down to over. I think they've got 11. Have they got 11 games left? Leicester, I think it's 11. maybe it brings him down to 9 or 10, which is about mean for everyone else. So you just have to get on with it.
I think exactly like you say. You've in some ways, I think you just have to pick the best players and just assume that they're going to play. I mean, Chelsea, for example, another team.
You can drive yourself crazy if you start
like
sitting there worrying about all the minutes, and as a result, go, I'm going to get James Ward-Prowse or someone else.
I know. At least he'll play 90 every week.
Yeah, and maybe it works out, but to me, it just seems pretty boring. I think you go for the players with the upside.
Havertz to me is the perfect example because I really, really, really want Havertz. I would have to take a hit
really
to get him. I know how times change, but I think Havertz could be one of the top scoring players between now and the end of the season. I'm not put off by the fact that he might be rotated. I'm more put off by the fact that I'll have to do quite serious surgery to be able to bring him in. But I'm seeing people being put off bringing him in because they're worried that, with the Champions League and the FA Cup, he's going to miss games. But that, to me, isn't a reason not to get him. Havertz is going to play a significant amount of minutes between now and the end of the season. He's the first choice striker for that team. He's so much better than Lukaku. And Tuchel's just done with Lukaku, it looks like. So Lukaku probably comes in, maybe for Everton in 35 or something like that. But to me, Havertz plays enough between now and the end of the season to make him a really strong option.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. I think with Chelsea, it's harder out of all the teams just because they've rotated the most out of every team anyway, and now we're getting to the crunch period.
And they pretty much got third sewn up. Like there's not too much danger for them.
Yeah, so if you say Havertz is definitely playing the Champions League, does he miss it? But let's not forget, Havertz, it's not like he's, his knees are crumbling away. He's still a young
exactly. I know. He's in the form of his life. He's fully fit. He's played pretty much every game since they went off into the Super Cup to Europe. He's played almost every match. He's missed the FA Cup, like an FA Cup game, which was an easy match.
You can also play different positions. I know he hasn't really utilised it, but you can play Havertz off of Lukaku. I still think he's a decent pick. Yeah, I think he's fine. I think he's probably one who's probably more on the side of, you'd worry more of his minutes than most, but he's still he's a midfielder playing up front for one of the top sides. So generally in his case, he's one of the ones who actually can score because not a lot of people playing up front doesn't necessarily mean anything
his
anymore,
conversion is really high.
He's actually okay at finding the net. So, I don't hate that move at all. And it's those kind of picks that I think, especially if maybe not for yourself or whatever, but if you're lower down the league, a lot of the other managers will be put off of them for the reasons you've mentioned, and they're the kind of person that can propel you. And I think it happened in the last 3 weeks. Havertz scores in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks have been incredible, and they've got ahead of the curve by getting him in because the same concerns were there at that point, I would say.
Yeah. Havertz, to me, if you're looking for someone to try and climb the ranks, I think Havertz is, in a pool of players that isn't huge, I think Havertz is by far, to me, the standout. We will move off from this side in a minute. Just the last team to mention is West Ham, just because they've got 3 matches against relegation-threatened sides, Everton, Brentford, Burnley, who are all surely going to be licking their lips at playing West Ham. West Ham just don't perform well after these European ties. That Sevilla game really took it out of them, and Spurs could have won that game by more. They had a bit of a fight back, but in the end, and we're going to look at it brings us quite nicely onto the defensive stats, because if you look at West Ham's defensive stats over the last 4, they're 19th. So this is including, these European games they've had. They're so far down the list. They're 11th for the season, 19th over the last 4. They've had tough fixtures against Wolves, Liverpool, Villa and Spurs. 19th on the ticker. But they are definitely struggling defensively. And they just don't have the squad, right? They don't have the squad to compete on multiple fronts like they're doing. So
which is why when we look at Man City, Liverpool and Chelsea, it's like, well, are they going to rotate? Yeah, well, because if you look at West Ham, they don't really, and this is kind of what happens towards the back end of the season. I know the players are more used to playing, and they're probably, could argue, more elite players because they're able to play every 3 days, but this is the kind of thing that can happen to your team. It does feel like West Ham have been hanging on for a while. Last 4 is probably a very small sample size, but it does feel like in West Ham's case, they've kind of been struggling for a while in general just to make get the players onto the pitch and grind out results. But to be fair, they've been doing it. But and the games are good enough, but in terms of general fitness levels, you'd worry, I think, over the next few.
Yep. Right, we're going to talk about some doubling teams now. Everyone strap yourself in. We're going to be talking about Everton and Burnley. Let's talk about their defenders first. This could be quite a short section. So over the season, Burnley are 15th and 16th in the league, which, really isn't great. In terms of minutes per big chance conceded, Everton's 38.6. There's only, I think, 3 teams worse than that, which is Leicester, Leeds and Norwich. Burnley's isn't too bad, 46.7. But it's the minutes per XG conceded non-pen, which is, you would expect Burnley to be higher than that over the season, generally speaking, given they've performed quite well under Dyche defensively. Over the last 4, they're 14th and 15th, so it's not like there's been any major improvements. They're about where they are, over the last 4 that have in this season, so it's not like we're suddenly seeing a resurgence in defence. So, I mean, Everton have had the 18th worst fixtures over the last 4. They've played City and Spurs in that time. But, I mean, you can't recommend any Everton defenders, can you? Pickford?
No.
No.
The bottom line, Pope's a better pick than Pickford. Pickford. Pope's a better pick than Pickford. So I can't make a case for Pickford.
No, I know.
Nice little nursery rhyme there.
It is, yeah, it's nice.
No, I don't. I wouldn't touch any Everton players. The stats are bad. They're bad on the eye test or whatever. The doubles aren't particularly appealing, I think. You can argue they're fighting for their lives. Does that mean anything? They're going to come out and get a result. We've seen it before.
It's such lazy kind of rhetoric, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, you could argue who needs the win out of Everton and Burnley more. Well, Burnley kind of need it too, don't they? It's just not appealing. Their players, do they have any fantasy picks outside of even a double? Not really. I mean, Calvert-Lewin hasn't even been one all season, and he should have been. So I'm just not interested, full stop, basically. Good. Which is a shame, because they've got 11 fixtures left, which is the most, depending on your chip strategies, everyone's got different ones, what they've used. As a general rule, if you've used most of your chips, you want to start bringing in players who've got extra games, right? So you'd want to try and get some in. I think the only person you could really look at is Gordon, to be honest. I don't even know if he's 100% now when everyone's back, but he's performed
definitely
well.
Is.
He's looked their best player by a mile.
There is no way Frank Lampard is dropping Anthony Gordon anytime soon. That would be like the most ridiculous thing. Yeah, it would be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, he's cheap enough where you could just carry him afterwards and leave him on your bench or whatever, couldn't you, as well? So I think he's pretty much the only one I personally would look at. But yeah. I could be wrong.
I mean, people are massively buying into Burnley, though. And if we go back to the fixtures quickly, you can kind of see why. I mean, Burnley, they've got a double now, City and Everton. Then they've got Norwich to the best single game week they can have in 32. And then another double in 33. So they're perfect for the people who want trying to free hit.
Potentially more doubles as well, I think.
And another double likely in 37, or that's Spurs and Villa. But they also play Watford, they play Newcastle. People are really going hard on like Weghorst or Pope is really popular. I kind of get it, from that sense, but I mean, if you look at the defense data, it's not great. If you come over to the attack data, it's also not great. they're over the season, they're 19th in terms of minutes per XG and non-penalty. Only Norwich are worse. Over the last 4, they're 14th with the 12th best fixtures. They're just not a team that's really creating chance. I mean, again, it's not exactly surprising stuff, but Weghorst is kind of becoming a bit of a cult hero, isn't he? Despite the fact he doesn't ever get any returns.
I think in the case of Burnley, the games all around there are good, like you've said. So the fixtures are better. So the idea of when you've got a baseline stat for the season, that obviously includes all the games they play against. So you'd expect in the easier games that goes slightly up. So you'd be like, okay, maybe there's a little bit there. It's the prospect of having all the other doubles that can, again, depending on your chip strategy, you're getting extra players. I think there's a potential they can have another one chucked in 34 or 35, I've heard people say as well, I think. And let's not forget, Pope's just generally a pretty damn good fantasy asset, and he has been ever since. Damn good. He's pretty damn good ever since he came into the league. So when there's no other real, I would say, massively stand out, like you have to have this goalkeeper, because I think there's lots of goalkeepers that are okay, that Pope's just an obvious. I mean, even for a hit to bring him in this week, wouldn't necessarily say he'd return the points this week, but it might make sense long term to whatever goalkeeper you have to move to Pope for a hit. I think it's got potential to just pay off from now to the end of the season, just having him in there. And Weghorst, for me, it's like just sheer volume of games again, isn't it? If you've got Jimenez in your team like I have, it's just the most obvious move ever. I'm not expecting anything from it. If you just look at Burnley versus Everton, is that an okay game? Yeah, it's an alright game. He could do okay there. I wouldn't necessarily pick him over anyone else. And then you're pretty much just adding, 2 points or 1 point for the game against City, aren't you? He's probably not going to get anything else there. So is that good enough for a striker? I think this season it probably is. What other strikers outside Kane would you even particularly back? So I don't mind Weghorst, I don't mind Pope. I think outside of that, Roberts is probably the only one I would even consider. I don't think I'd have anyone else.
Sorry, I will apologise, as someone has very correctly pointed out. The chart. I don't know what is going on. I know it might look like it's my fault, but it's not my fault. But one of the charts hadn't changed, or was the wrong one. I'm going to put you off the attacks of these teams even more now because I've got the correct chart on the screen. Basically, over the last four, Burnley and Everton are the two worst attacks in the league.
Yeah, it's not particularly surprising, is it?
It's
But we all
Everton,
had a lot of us
Everton
had
at the
Jimenez,
bottom.
and they're sat at 17th in your last four there, and 18th for the season, and we had him. So
But you've got to admit, it's quite funny, isn't it? You've got this double game week, and we're all a bit like meh on it, and then you know they're going to be quite bad teams anyway. But then you look at the stats, and they are literally the two worst teams over the last four in that period. It's so hard to get excited because I mean the defense. Okay, you can maybe say Pope's an option in the Burnley back line. You're not going to go anywhere near Everton, and then you're trying to sell some of the more exciting players, like Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin and Weghorst, and then it's not working.
you know what's going to happen now. This game's going to be like a 4-4 classic now. After everyone's slagged it off, and then finally everyone's going to go, no, I'm not going to fall for the bait, and then you just know fantasy rules dictate that this will be crazy, and Calvert-Lewin hat trick, and God knows what. No, it's probably not going to happen, is it?
Probably not.
I genuinely think that Pope, Weghorst, and maybe Roberts, you could look at Gordon for Everton, and I don't think there's anyone else. And even there, I wouldn't be breaking my team apart to get them. It's only if it sort of suits your chip strategy long term or whatever that it makes sense to do it.
Agreed. Yeah, and it's going to be hard to try and sway you off that because I broadly agree with you as well. But we'll do our best. We'll just go through these in a bit more detail. So this is the player data over the season. We've added a couple of new things to this chart. So the highlighted numbers in black means that player is in the top 10 out of all the players that we looked at on this list for that particular stat. So, for example, Salah is in the top 10 for minutes per shot in the box, and minutes per points, which probably isn't the most surprising thing. This is filtered by minutes per XGI non-penalty. You've got to go down to 54th out of all players to find a Everton or Burnley player, and that is Calvert-Lewin. His minutes per shot in the box of 33.2 is in the top 10 in the league, which is encouraging, I guess, from his side. He's had a very sort of stop-start season, 3 goals for him, all came kind of at the start of the season. He did get that kind of nice-ish assist against, well, it wasn't nice-ish, it was a nice assist, for Iwobi against Newcastle. They just really need him, don't they? But it's just a complete punt, isn't it? It's just hoping that he rediscovers some form. He, to me, is the most interesting pick, but I don't know if I could go there.
Yeah, I mean, he's Calvert-Lewin is the classic upside pick. He's got 2 games, they're all right, he's on penalties. Like, if you're going to pick anyone just completely, almost on a whim that's going to suddenly return to some form, then obviously you would go with him, right? Because he's the best fantasy asset that either of the teams have got, probably out from him and Pope at least. So yeah, I can understand it and why people, if they're just going to throw caution to the wind and go, do you know what? No other forward's doing anything at all anyway. It's not going to matter. I'm going to get him in. I can see the reasons, but I certainly won't be coming near my team.
No, don't blame you. Played out over the last 6. Again, you've got to go down to 58th to find a Burnley or Everton player. That's J. Rodriguez, who no one's going to buy. Dwight McNeil, he's 80th.
Yeah,
in terms of minutes for XGI non-penalty.
Jay Rodriguez I think he's actually a decent player. Like, he certainly was once upon a time, and Dwight McNeil as well. But it's just,
McNeil's had an awful season. I mean,
I think he's got like 1 assist or something.
He hasn't got any, no goals.
Has he not got any? I thought he had
goals.
1.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty shocking. I mean, under a different manager in a different system, these players could work, and they have such a say on how these things go, I think. So yeah. No, not interested.
And then going even further down, you've got Iwobi in 88th. Not convinced on his numbers. You'll notice here there's no Gordon. So even though he's been performing quite well, his minutes per XGI non-penalty isn't even the top 88 of players in the league. No Calvert-Lewin either. Even though he kind of comes off the bench and gets an assist and has been kind of knocking around it in parts, still not featuring on this list in the top 88 players. So there just isn't really a case to be made in terms of the underlying stats that any of these players are going to explode in these games. So there you go. It has a bit of positive
news. The thing is, we probably didn't even need that session to put people off, is the honest truth.
No. Kind of as we go. We talked about keepers. I mean, we talked about Pickford and Pope. We've kind of covered them. Schmeichel's the other interesting one, I think. He's down to 4.8 now. He's got a lot of games to play. there's some kind of uncertainty about Ramsdale. I mean, he travelled with the squad to Arsenal, but sorry, not to Arsenal. He plays for Arsenal too. They're playing Villa, but obviously didn't start, and Leonard played quite well. I mean, if Ramsdale is out for a period of time, I'm going to have to move him out. I think because I've got Dubravka who's also flagged. I think it would be Schmeichel that I got.
So you'd go for him over Pope, would you?
I think so. I mean, Pope's 5'4".
Yeah, there's obviously a price difference.
Schmeichel at 4'8". I mean, that's fairly sizable. 0.6.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, it's not in the past. I'd have worried about maybe using up 3 Leicester spots, but it's probably not a concern.
No, I know.
Yeah,
that would be
I
my
can see
3
it.
with Amity and Van Barnes.
Yeah, just imagine that. So you've got to double up on Leicester's defence. It doesn't feel like a great idea, does it?
No, when you put it like that, it doesn't really.
No, and the thing with the benefit of, like, Schmeichel's good at, he's a good goalkeeper. He makes some good saves. But the thing with Pope is he's always had that haul potential. He's always had that in his locker, where even when they've looked bad or whatever. And I don't know if this is even really a thing, but Burnley just seem to pull it out of the bag, don't they, towards the back end of the season generally, and Pope starts coming in with the worldies to keep them up. That's often what happens. So will history repeat itself? I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. I mean, Pope's minutes per save, 42 minutes, doesn't even put him in the top 10 goalkeepers. So he's not making a huge amount of saves at the moment. You're almost reliant on the clean sheets with him, which I can't see Burnley getting too many of.
No, generally their system in the past has been to force long shots against him, hasn't it? And I don't see any evidence that's necessarily changed. But you'd want more saves in there. But it's just a volume of fixtures thing, I think, with Pope. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Looking at defenders again, so this is over the last 6 game weeks. You've got Coleman down in 22nd and Ben Mee in 25th. That's kind of about as good as it gets. Some of the other options, Collins, 35th, Roberts, 58th, Tarkowski down in 69th. I mean, oh God, we're really clutching the barrel. If you're looking at the top of the list, you've got sort of, a lot of Tottenham fullbacks. Emerson Royale's first, Reguilon's third, Doherty's fourth. Robertson's in 8th, with Trent in 2nd. Cancelo's in 10th, so he's kind of creeping up the list. I'm finding defenders really hard to differentiate. I mean, there really is. There's kind of just Doherty, Trent, Robertson, Cancelo,
and soon to be
James. But then I mean, you were talking about rotation with Chelsea. We're almost certainly going to see him kind of in and out the side. And then I quite like someone like Laporte, who's a bit cheaper than Cancelo. Anyone else?
There's not. No. The thing is, I don't really feel. I mean, Roberts is the other one. You could just go again because he's cheap enough, and they Burnley play a lot of games. I see some people going there, but I mean, we literally have some of the best fantasy assets we'll ever have at some of the cheapest prices we'll ever have them in the likes of Cancelo. I mean, I can't see how Cancelo doesn't go up ridiculously more expensive. James the same. You could argue Trent probably is as well. Even Robertson. I know they've been a thing for a while, but they could also go up, I think, if they just generally try to address that position. So what's the point of changing? I mean, Doherty's cheaper now. If he's a starting wing, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be the case, but let's say he's a starting wing back for next season, is he going to be more expensive as well? Probably. They've got games. So what's the need? These guys have got crazy upside. You just go for. I mean, we've been taking the mick on Twitter. Everyone going, my top 3 replacements are obviously going to be, for Trent are Robertson, Cancelo, and James. Oh yeah, shock. How much do we have to pay for that advice? We all know that, and there's a good reason we know that, because they're clearly the standout pick. So there's no point messing around. These guys are your top men.
Yeah,
and I was just going to say on the James thing, I can understand why some people wouldn't want to go there, because we've just discussed Chelsea, his injury problems, it's a high intensive position, where's their focus? For me, his upside's good enough that you just go there and you see what happens. He can score an assist in any game, and if he plays 1 in the game week, Rudiger plays 2, let's say. I'm not even sure, 100% sure Rudiger would now just play every game. He's got some contract issues and stuff. The games are that important to them. Why not rest their most important players? He has happened before. He can play 1 game, James, and outscore Rudiger in 2, especially if Rudiger doesn't keep a clean sheet in the second one, which can happen a lot. You might just get 2 points in it. So for me, it's just clear. You just go James, but Other people, better players than me probably won't go James. So fair enough.
But you make the good point in that these players are cheap, and we are comparing the likes of James to the likes of Weghorst, and like there's no comparison
exactly.
really.
It's an absolute joke. Let's end the conversation.
I mean, really,
you've got to look at the price of, let's say, a 4.5 defender compared to the price, and obviously when you go to a striker and go down, you're looking at people who don't even play. So it's not really a direct comparison, but yeah, it's still laughable, isn't it? You're going to pick James or Weghorst for God's sake.
I think what's interesting is the defender classification next season and whether it does need to change, because really Trent is a 9 million, 10 million player.
Well, if they don't change the structures, they're going to have to address the price. It's as simple as that.
I think they have to, because you've got such a difference in like budget strikers and premium strikers of so going from like 4.5 up to what's Kane 12.5 13 something like that, so like 9 million, whereas from the cheapest defender to the most expensive you've only got 3 million. And
the top level defenders like Cancelo at 6 million and stuff are very likely to score similarly to between 10 and 12 million forward.
Exactly.
That's the reality of football these days at the moment and the prices they've got. So they need to look at it. If they're not going to look at it structurally, they're going to need to look at it price-wise. And the thing is, it's not just that they're more potentially explosive with the attacking returns, it's the fact that they come with a very, very safe sort of 15 to 20 clean sheets, because they get them every season. You can look at Man City again next season and say nothing changes and go, yeah, they're probably going to sit somewhere between, maybe more than 20 clean sheets if they have a great season, but probably somewhere around 15 to 20 clean sheets. You can't look at any centre-forward and go, yeah, they're going to get 15 to 20 goals in that same price bracket. No chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at midfielders then. So if you're looking for a midfielder who has the best underlying stats over the last 6, you will be getting Dwight McNeil. He's in 52nd, minutes per XGI of 315.6, which is pretty bad. Cornet, if anyone's wondering, 370. Gordon, below all of them, 395.3. So I really rate Gordon. I think he's a fantastic talent. It's all the set pieces, loads in his locker, but pure underlying stats-wise, not any indication there's going to be a big haul from him. But then he's a 4.5 million option, right? So kind of to be expected.
Yeah, it's just that whole thing of leaving him on your bench afterwards, isn't it? And hoping if you get a set piece taker in a double game week, you're hopeful that you can pick up something by fluke more than anything, aren't you? So yeah, six week game weeks, so it's very short sample size. Obviously, season longs generally more advised, but it does at least show some trends. And yeah, what else is there to say? You get Gordon if you really want to, and just leave him on your bench afterwards.
You say about the season long data, but something like this is perfect for someone like Havertz, for example, because Havertz just wasn't a factor up until the thing with Lukaku started happening, and the Super League came, not the Super League, the Super Cup, European Super Cup. Is it called the Super Cup that Chelsea are in? Something like that.
Yeah.
And that's when Havertz sort of got into the starting lineup. It was about 6 game weeks ago, and now his minutes per point of 10.3 is second only midfielders to Salah.
And it was the same last season with him, to be fair. Do you remember when the manager took over or whatever, and Havertz, or was it when he came midway through, he ended up being the top player for XGI from that point to the end of the season. So it was no surprise, and this is why a lot of us liked Havertz as, because he had the potential to be good. It's just the minutes. So I wouldn't necessarily say, I don't know.
I never slated his potential. I said he had a poor game, and I stand by that, and he did.
With him, his minutes have increased. I don't know if his stats have dramatically increased, but yeah.
Well, the minutes per touch in the box is 11.3. The thing is that some of the other stats aren't much to write home about. Minutes per shot of 40, for example, isn't in the top 10. Neither is minutes per shot in the box of 36. Minutes per chance created, 90. So he's creating 1 chance a match, in theory. But he is so clinical. He's just what that Chelsea team lacks so much. They've got so much talent. Pulisic and... Werner's is still a talent. Even he scored again for Germany, but just can't seem to be doing it for Chelsea.
Designed around, the
system is designed for Havertz, though. That's the way I see it in the role.
Or
that
it's having a pressing and moving forward who can bring others into play, isn't it?
Yeah, which is what we thought was going to be Lukaku, with the ability to finish, and it was for a bit, but those days look.
Yeah. It hasn't gone well for Lukaku, but we do have to factor in that there's been other reasons as well that have now come towards that. Obviously this thing with Inter, we don't know for sure that he couldn't have made it work in the end. We don't know that for sure. It didn't look like it was working. But I think when you actually look at Lukaku's data, he's actually one of the best players still in Europe for bringing other players into the game, which is really surprising. I think there's been some games recently where he's touched the ball about 4 times in the entire match, but the data's still there that says that he's good at that. So.
We'll probably see from the forwards. I believe he has the worst minutes per XGI non-penalty of all forwards.
Brilliant.
In the league, which is like just incredible. Even when he's on the pitch coming on for 10 minutes, he's still not doing anything. One other player I want to mention here, though, maybe a bit of forward planning, is Sancho. So Sancho is looking a lot better, right? And United have got this double game week coming up in 33. Minutes per point of 12.3. That's in the top 10 of midfielders over the last 6. Looks like he's finally kind of worked his way into the starting 11. Any thoughts on him? Would you go there? You're a United fan? No.
No.
Okay, good.
I can understand it, but I just think unless it's a price thing, you'd still go Bruno Fernandes if you were going to pick a midfielder. He's more nailed to play the games. He's not necessarily.
It's easier to if you've got Salah and Kane. It's much easier to get Sancho than Fernandes.
I get that. I think that people expected Sancho to play in the most recent double. I think he only played one of them. I think he's more likely than some of the others to maybe just miss out on a game.
Really?
Yeah, I still think it's possible. I mean, they've lost Greenwood. Rashford's terrible, so maybe not. Maybe I'm doing him a disservice, but I think he's all right. I just prefer other midfielders, and I think if I really was going to do it, I'd still go Bruno because I don't know what you think about Ronaldo, but is Ronaldo guaranteed to play all the games? I think there's some debate there. But let's say he doesn't play one of the games, suddenly you've got penalties added onto Bruno Fernandes, which then brings his appeal back up. So I would only go Sancho if it was a cost thing. I think that's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see. I don't mind Sancho. I think the question mark is, though, would I rather have Sancho or Foden, for example?
Well, Foden's XGI across the season is better, and Man City are a better team.
Exactly.
And he's cheaper, isn't he? I'm pretty sure he is.
Oh yeah, he's like $1 million. He's $1 million cheaper.
Yeah,
but he hasn't got the double in 33, and there's likelihood of rotation, as you mentioned kind of earlier.
Yeah, maybe against Burnley, and maybe depending on where they go in the Champions League a little bit more. But Foden generally has been more nailed. I don't think it's any more likely that Foden would get rotated over Sancho. Yeah, I'd still take Foden in that matchup.
I mean, Mahrez as well. Mahrez is 8.7, so Mahrez is the same price as Sancho. He's got the best. He's in the top 10 for minutes per touch in the box, minutes per shot, and minutes per shot in the box. In fact, I think his minutes per shot in the box is second only to Salah. Mahrez.
Yeah, it's surprising because I generally don't think of him as a box type player.
No, I know. Getting on the edge of the area and sort of cutting in and smashing him from the front.
I mean, Mahrez is. We all know what he's like. His data never fails to entice us into picking him, but
I'm just picking out. I'm never going there again.
I know that. It's a very interesting one for Mahrez actually because he's generally been a Burnley specialist. He's played against them and is one of his favourite opponents. And Pep does like playing the same players for tactical reasons against the same opponents. So outside of any other scenario, you would say Mahrez plays against Burnley and probably does well. He didn't do well last time, but he has a very good record. But Mahrez has now forced his way into probably their main team and generally plays the Champions League games. So suddenly it's that situation where he usually plays Burnley, but he usually also plays all the Champions League and is in their main team. So something's got to give somewhere. No?
Yeah.
So yeah, he now becomes a risk again.
God, yeah, nice. Final player on this list I want to mention is Saka, just because I think as close to kind of essential as it gets in terms of Salah and Kane, I think Saka is now probably in that bracket. He's in the top 10 for minutes per touch in the box, minutes per shots, minutes per shot in the box, and minutes per chances created. So and Arsenal got good fixtures, got a double game week in 33. Like you've got to have him, haven't you? You've got to have him.
Yeah, I hate using those words of got to have, essential, rah rah rah, but there is literally no reason not to have Saka in your team, is there? He's been very close to being a very, very good fantasy pick for a long time, and now he is. It's as simple as that.
Agreed. Forwards then. So, as I mentioned Jay Rodriguez before. He got to go down 22nd out of the forwards to find Calvert-Lewin for minutes per XGI non-penalty. Weghorst is 24th, 414.4 minutes per XGI non-penalty. I mean, that's what, every 4 games? Every 4.5 games he's got to get an XGI. That's like literally ridiculous. To me. To put it into context, Kane's 109.1. So Kane is pretty much getting you something every match. Weghorst is getting you something every 4 to 5 games, if you're lucky. Minutes per point of 25. They give him 25 minutes to get you a point as well. So he's kind of the big target everyone's going in. He's not in the top 10 for any stat. And these stats include accuracy, conversion, minutes per shot in the box, minutes per points. He's just not that good, really, as an FPL pick.
The thing is, on that list, and I know it's again only the last 6 game weeks, but I can't see anyone else you would even bring in. So for me, you either don't bring in a forward, essentially. So you bring in maybe Geldhart. I think he's the go-to because he's probably one of the cheapest ones who's likely to see some minutes. And his XGI is actually really good when he's on the pitch, but the caveat is he spends about 5 minutes on the pitch. Yeah, so you either go, especially if you've got Jimenez, you go Weghorst, or you literally just bin that forward slot off and look for, maybe people have already binned one off. I mean, I've got Broher in my team, so it's close to being binned off. And play with one up front. And I think that's what people are looking at. It's one of those two. You wouldn't. His stats are bad, but who else would you buy from that list above there? Unless you're going for Ronaldo.
Here's a name for you.
Go on.
Mateta. Would you?
What a wonderful thing.
Very good.
No, I wouldn't. He's been all right. He's done well. The stats are good. I can't argue.
5.2, 2 goals in 3 starts.
Yeah. It's just they've got options up front, haven't they? I don't know if he is the best striker. Maybe I'd need to do more research, to be fair. But to me, it's still a surprise that he's actually playing games. But maybe I'm just a little bit behind there.
Well, I mean, it is a surprise because I still think Edouard is the best striker there. To me, he's better than Benteke, he's better than Mateta, but he doesn't seem to get a look in. And I'm sure Palace fans will be screaming, "Oh, you don't watch enough games" and all that. But I was really jealous when they signed Edouard, and there was a period doing BlackBox where his stats were so far ahead of all the other strikers, including Kane.
Well, I think Mateta, he's done well, and I think the thing with Palace is whoever's played as the forward, Benteke's stats look good when he's here. Mateta's do, Edouard. So having the Palace forwards are generally a good idea, but when they've got so many people to pick from, can you be confident that he'll just play? I mean, what happens if Mateta has a couple of crap games as far as Vieira's concerned? That's always the worry. Does it matter at 5.2? Probably not. But
that's it. I mean, you're comparing him to Cucho at 5, but Sar's going to come back in, so we don't know if he's going to keep his place. You're comparing to like Broja, who I'd still
take Broja.
Particularly right. Yeah, I mean, Broja's got the double game week in 33. He seems the most logical one of kind of the sub 6 million options.
He's not been playing well, Broja, of late, but he is a super talent, and I still think at his price, he's still got something to say for the rest of the season. I still think he's probably the better pick of most of those on those lists, to be honest. I think it's Kane, Weghorst if you want to play the double, Broja, maybe Geldhart. They're about the only 4 I'd even consider.
Can I just say, though, after my tweet, which I got absolutely slammed for, over the last 6 game weeks, no striker has a worse minutes per point than Broja. 41.9.
You're so outcome focused, Az.
Always.
Despicable behaviour.
Always. I don't like to gloat, but I got so much bloody stick for that. Well, you know me, mate. Humble as always. Final player to talk about here, I think, is Richarlison, just because he is so unbelievably disappointing. At 27th on the list, again, similar to Weghorst, not a single stat in the top 10. Conversion 0% because he hasn't got a goal. He's had one assist in 6 starts. And he just doesn't look like he's going to help Everton's plight at all.
I think he's more likely to get sent off than get a goal.
Me too.
Or at least equal chance. Yeah, it just doesn't interest me.
No, you go Calvert-Lewin over Richarlison. They're about the same price.
I mean, we're talking about, he's not been in the Brazil team of late, I don't think, but we're talking about a player who's like potentially Brazilian international linked with top teams as well, and it's just nothing, is it?
He's definitely not suited for a relegation spot.
Well, people would argue and say that he had that about him because he's a bit of a battler, wasn't he? Even in the bad games, he always had that where he would try hard, he'd get stuck in, he'd do X, Y, Z. But who gives a crap?
I didn't think he could ever look more miserable. And then now Everton,
he's a scary individual, that Richarlison, I tell you.
Yeah,
I'd be more worried he gets sent off. It's just general frustration. I mean, would you want to be playing for that crap? I would. No offense, no offense, any Everton fans, but
he got 2 for Brazil tonight, apparently.
Oh, did he play tonight? Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Is he still in the Brazil squad?
Wow, it says more about the Brazil squad in recent years.
He does. Yeah. Well,
it's getting better.
Anyway, I don't think that's gonna spur him on, to be honest, for Everton. So I would urge people not to get Richarlison. I think now watch him score a brace. Final thing on the players. Then this is my cheat sheet, which I do for these double game weeks. Essentially, I just look at all the double game week options. I rank them in terms of their minutes per XGI non-penalty, give them a score of 1 to 10 because there's 10 players on the list. The higher the score, the better. I look at their fixtures as well and get an average of that. Again, the higher the score, the worse the fixtures are. Add those two together to give them a total score. Calvert-Lewin comes up on top. So in terms of likelihood of attacking returns, according to my method, which I'm sure has got some questionable things around it, I rate that Calvert-Lewin is the most likely to get points, with Anthony Gordon second. Weghorst is 8th on the list, just behind Cornet and McNeil as well. I mean, McNeil, his stats are the best out of the Burnley lot, but I don't really back him. To me,
let's stop flogging this horse. That's
I know. I'm just saying, if you're desperate for a double gaming player, to me, the two best options are Calvert-Lewin and Gordon. That's it.
Yeah, maybe. Weghorst too, even though he's terrible, probably.
No, I'm not backing him.
It's more in hope.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to predictions then. So thank you again, as always, to FPL Pot Noodle for updating these. Mark and I have now predicted 279 matches. I'm leading him on correct outcomes, 52.7% to 48%. But Mark has now overtaken me on correct scores, 10.4% for him, which is pretty nice compared to my 9.3. And he leads me on clean sheets, now 45.7% to 42.9%. So I was ahead of him in all these categories. I'm still maintaining that correct outcomes is the most important one. But, I'm sure he'd disagree with that. He had a pretty good week this week. He got 2 results right, I think. 2 results exactly right, which was the Arsenal and Leicester Brentford game. Yeah, so 50% strike rate on that for him. So he'll be chuffed. Right, let's go through the fixtures then. I'm so looking forward just to a full weekend of fixtures. Again, feels like ages. Sorry, I haven't got your predictions on here, but we can add up those in kind of as we go. So Liverpool, Watford, I've gone for a 3-0. Mark's gone for a 2-0. What do you reckon? Surely a comfortable win.
Yeah. Do you want my... I mean, I can give my predictions if I want.
Yeah,
I'll go 3-0 as well. I'll go with you, Az.
Yep.
I mean, it looks pretty... everything tells us that this should be fairly comfortable. I mean, if they're missing Trent and Salah, potentially, I mean, some people are still saying that. Do you think that's going to make any difference, or...?
No. If I'm being honest. No. I mean, who comes in at right back, I guess, is the question. They haven't really got a right back. I guess it's
Gomez,
Milner.
I'd imagine, wouldn't it? Was Gomez probably
Gomez
or maybe Milner, I think.
Gomez has barely had a look in this season. I don't really know. I mean, losing Trent and Salah is going to weaken your team, but, when Diaz comes in, attacking wise...
I suspect Salah still plays anyway, but...
So do I.
But even, I mean, if you lose... one of the most creative players in Europe, it's going to have a little bit of an effect, surely, but the team's just too good, isn't it? Surely they're just going to be comfortable,
Yep. Brighton-Norwich, I've gone for a comfortable Brighton win, which I haven't seen in a long time, 2-0. Mark's gone for a 1-1. I mean, surely we don't draw with Norwich. I mean...
They've been a lot more impressive of late, Norwich.
I mean,
see why he's going for that.
Well, you say that. They're bottom of the team data attack. No, sorry, they're 18th. 18th of the team attack, and they're 20th in terms of the defence.
When I say more impressive, I mean compared to themselves in the first few weeks of the season compared to now later. No, I still think Brighton... You always worry with Brighton, don't you? You just never know whether they're going to show up or not, but I'd expect Brighton win that game,
I mean, we've been on a really bad run lately, like 5 losses in a row, I think, something like that. And you've got to think this is a game. We haven't been playing great. We've missed Webster, but we've had spells where we've looked decent. When we played Spurs, we looked really good for a bit and then just completely trailed off. I just think we'll have enough against Norwich. But
I saw some rumours today that Sanchez might have COVID. I don't know if that's true. So
really?
If anyone's sat there with goalkeeper problems, he's probably another one that you can add to your
crap
list.
this season anyway, so... I mean, that sounds quite disrespectful to him. I'm sorry if he has got COVID. Obviously, I hope he recovers. But purely from a footballing perspective, I don't think it'd be the biggest loss if he was out. Steelers are bad, and we've got that big Dutch guy as well from Ajax. It's coming.
Potter, first and foremost, he's having someone who can play with the ball at his feet, isn't it? That's the way he wants to play. So you can see why Sanchez is there. But in terms of saves, it's not been particularly great for him. But I'd again more edge with you. I think Brighton win 2-0 sounds about right.
Burnley City, I've gone for a comfortable City win, 3-0. Mark's gone for a bit more of a cagey 2-1. You're the City expert. Is this a heavy rotation, narrow win, or is this a thumping like they normally give them?
I'll leave the rotation until closer because I need to look at some other things and press conference. I think it's just a game where it could happen, so that's all I would say, and not to necessarily bank on the likes of Cancelo playing. I think of late, even though they have a fantastic record against Burnley, Man City have been playing in a very particular style to avoid turnovers. They've wanted to completely dominate the ball, which they shouldn't have a hard job against Burnley because they do that most of the time. But they play at a slightly slower pace, and although they'd love to have 4 or 5 goals, but it's generally just been a sort of get to 1-2-0 and focus on the clean sheet thing. So, yeah, I think 2-0 Man City. I think you'd be more than happy
2-0?
with that. Yeah, I think that could happen.
I love that Mark's given Burnley a goal, and that's because he's captaining Red Horse.
He's always it's a forever optimist, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it could happen, but I doubt it. Man City are going to be camped right on their halfway line, and Burnley don't have any pace. Everyone knows the blueprint to beat Man City. Well, yeah, I suppose he's got some pace, but questionable amount. Yeah, everyone knows that's the way you do it. It's the Spurs mantra of what happened the other week. So I just can't see it.
They're
I think
like
they've scored
the
one
worst
goal.
team to be playing City. Like if you look at them like logically, I mean they can attack. They've got the players to do that. I mean with Cornet and McNeil. But
in the last 9 games in all competitions, they've scored 1 goal, Burnley, and Man City have scored 34, I think it was, or 32. It doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Not great, is it? Not great. Yeah.
No.
Chelsea Brentford next. I mean, this is another. I mean, Liverpool, City, and Chelsea all have good fixtures this week, all against relegation threatened teams. Chelsea Brentford. I've gone for a big Chelsea win, 3-0. Mark's gone for a 2-0.
Yeah, I'll go 2-0 as well, hopefully. 2-0. You think James starts and plays this one? He's in training at the moment, apparently.
No.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No,
who plays right wing back then?
Az Filiquero, I guess. Is he back?
Yeah. I don't know. They can't. Chelsea, it makes such a difference if they've got their proper wing backs playing, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it does. But like if James is just back, why would you use him against Brentford when they've got this big Champions League game coming up? Like he had
to get minutes in his legs, rhythm is the phrase.
I mean he has had some minutes though, hasn't he? Only 2 weeks ago, so it's not like he's been out for months without playing.
Yeah, I just think it may if we knew he was playing, I'd be more optimistic on the 3-0 is what I was getting at.
Yeah, well the wing backs are huge.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll go for 2-0 Chelsea.
Yep. Leeds Southampton. I've gone for a draw, 1-1. Mark's gone for a Leeds win. He's over the Leeds optimism. I'd love to see like the league table of Mark's predictions. I swear he just gives Leeds points every week. But they have been a lot better under Marsh. It looks like that was a good move, sort of getting rid of Bielsa and bringing in someone a bit less stubborn. Southampton been really poor as well. Haven't really been picking up too many points. Had a great run. Where they've kind of taken the game to everyone, but have struggled lately.
I'm going to go for a surprise.
2 evenly matched teams, I think. You're going to go for a surprise, okay?
I think Southampton are going to win. I think Leeds they've been great, and it's been a great story, but I think they've been lucky to be winning. And Southampton, when the moment you start doubting Southampton, they suddenly somehow find a way to turn it around. Is usually the way.
Like
and I think they're a better side than Leeds. Is the bottom line. They've just been playing pretty poorly of late. So I think Southampton have a good chance to win. I think I'm probably going to be starting Broha on my team, so it's probably the old Mark thing of just being incredibly optimistic that he starts and plays well. But this is Broha's comeback. You heard it here. two goals.
Yeah, it could be. Next is the Midlands Derby. So this is one that I'm wrestling with because I've got Coutinho in my team. Villa's fixtures are really poor. I really want Havertz and could get him for a hit, and it would probably be Coutinho that left. I mean, I've gone for a 2-1 Villa here because I think without Jimenez, Wolves might struggle to find an outball. Jimenez hasn't been great attacking wise. Yeah, they've got a couple of players out. They've they can be, their defensive numbers have improved lately, but they have shown they can be a bit ropey. And I think Villa are going to have a bit of a point to prove here. So I think there's goals in this one. Mark's gone for a 0-0, but I think there's goals in this one. It is two, on their day, two good defensive sides. I just think Coutinho could have a say in this one. I'm a little bit reluctant to get rid of him.
I think when Wolves played without Jimenez recently, even though Jimenez has been really bad, it didn't quite work, and it felt like they were missing that. Just probably the natural way of playing.
He links up the play. I mean, a bit like Harry Kane for Spurs when they haven't got that player.
Though, hasn't he?
He has
so bad.
He has, but Yeah, I mean, he really has. But the fact he drops deep and the fact he collects the ball and he kind of tries to make things happen.
It's more about the system and how they're
Exactly.
used to playing with him.
Exactly.
I think Neves out is big for them. Maybe 1-1. Yeah, if anyone's going to win, I think Villa as well, probably. But I think that's more of a boring score draw, I think. But.
Yeah, interesting. I'll talk about my team in a bit, but I'm not really too sure what to do. United, Leicester, Mark and I have gone completely differently. I think Leicester win this. Mark's gone for a 2-1 United. I just don't see anything from United at the moment, and I think Leicester are improving.
Their attacking data is good though, Man United, isn't it?
It is. Their attacking data is good. Yeah, I think they'll score. I just think Leicester getting key players back now. Their defensive numbers are improving a bit. They've been getting some results and wins. I don't think it's a good time to be playing them. And I think at Old Trafford, the crowd, like fans booing Maguire, for example. That's United fans doing that, I reckon. no basis for that whatsoever. But you see at Old Trafford, when the team isn't playing well, the fans kind of turn on them a bit. And it's similar to Brighton as well. Sometimes going away actually helps a team like that out because they haven't got to deal with that kind of that pressure. I think this is the shock. I think this is the shock of the shock result of the week.
I think Man United might win, but yeah, I can see that. They're both two teams that are just so up and down. You just never know. But I just back the data, and Man United's data is better, and they're at home, so eventually something's got to give, surely, and they come good on it. So I think Ronaldo could start turning some heads if he plays this one. Is there any reason to think that Ronaldo won't play this one? I haven't been keeping up to it. I don't think there is. I know he had a bit of a hip flexor issue recently, but
he played last night in the qualifying.
So I think Ronaldo. People are going to start looking at Man United, aren't they? Because of the doubles upcoming. I think he might turn a few heads in this one. Yep, he's brilliant in the air, and Leicester are terrible aerially. Yeah.
Yeah, but it should be a good game because it's two teams that can't really defend and like to attack a bit. I just think if I was Rodgers, I'd be saying this is a good time to get them. We'll see. It'd be interesting to know how United do finish the season because they're out of the Champions League now. Top 4 is gone, I think. So what are they kind of playing for? But yeah, they've still got some talent. West Ham, Everton. Mark and I both gone for a 2-0 West Ham.
Yeah,
because Everton are so bad. That's the only main reason.
Yeah, I'd probably go 2-0 as well. It feels like West Ham could do more if they were in a better place. But is Bowen back yet?
We're not sure. I don't think he's far away.
Okay. I think if he was back, you could argue it would be more, especially if he was fit and firing. So it's not as good as he's been. But yeah, 2-0. Nothing more to say.
Spurs, Newcastle. I've gone for 2-1. Spurs, Mark's gone for 2-0 as well. Newcastle have been, have been brilliant. I was just really impressed with Spurs when I saw them at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Thought they played really well. West Ham had a bit of a spell, but generally speaking, Spurs managed it. Kulusevski makes such a difference. That side. He added so much balance on that side.
They've been good, but I think in general they are more suited to the games where they are going to counter, and they've sometimes slipped up a little bit, even under Conte, in some of the games you'd expect them to do better. I also think Newcastle, I think I'm right in saying their expected goal for the team is only behind City and Liverpool since the new manager joined, which is mental. I saw a stat like that on Twitter. I don't know if that's verified, but basically their attacking data has been vastly
I can see what it is over the last 6.
I think since Howe came in,
isn't going back that far.
Okay, I'm pretty sure people should check it out because it was just on Twitter, so it could be totally wrong. But Howe has got a Newcastle.
I mean, they're 13th over the last 4. Sorry, with the 5th best fixtures. So it's not that impressive. That's a hell of a stat if that's true.
I think I saw it, so I don't know whether it's true or not. But since he came in, I think they're only behind City and Liverpool in terms of expected goals, which is pretty crazy. So it's a dramatic improvement anyway. So I think they'll get a goal, is what I was getting at. I think they might get a goal, but Spurs will probably still win.
Yeah, I think they'll get a goal. I think Fraser from a corner and a Dan Burn header. That's my prediction. And Crystal Palace, Arsenal. This should be a good game. I'm looking forward to this one, not because I think there's going to be loads of goals in it, but it's two really good sides. I mean, Crystal Palace, again, using that last 4 data, Palace have had the worst fixtures of all teams, and yet they're kind of mid-table for the attacking and defensive data. So again, this is the thing we've seen all season. Just Vieira getting them playing well above, what they're kind of expected to do. A really, really well really good side, really organised, and so are Arsenal. So it's two teams who have got kind of similar styles of play, both good defensively, both with kind of good vibrant attacks. I think Arsenal's attack is just better, and they'll find a way through, and Palace will find it hard to score. So I've gone for an Arsenal win, but it should be pretty close, right?
Yeah, I just think it's one of the better games. Forget FPL, just of the game week, really, isn't it? Two teams that are playing really well at the moment and have a clear idea and system of how they want to play. So it'd be interesting because they both want to keep the ball as well. Yeah, I think Arsenal are just playing so well that you'd put them favourites, wouldn't you? But it'd be an interesting game. I don't think it'll be easy for either side.
Yep. And then the final match is the Burnley Everton game. It's the only game on Wednesday. I cannot think of anything worse than watching that game, which means I'm almost certainly going to do it. I've gone for a 1-0 Burnley. I've gone for a 1-0 Burnley. I did a video with a few people last week for Scout, and we looked. I think it was with Ted. No, it wasn't with Ted. We did who was it with? It was Tom. We're looking at relegation things and our predictions between now and the end of the season. And I had Everton to go down. I just can't see where Everton are going to get any wins from. They're so bad. And this is such a key match for them against Burnley, because if they lose this, they're already in big trouble, but they're even more in big trouble if they lose this. And both Mark and I have both gone for a Burnley win.
I almost want Everton to go down simply because in FPL, Digne has trolled the living hell out of me over the previous seasons. I didn't go on Calvert-Lewin when he was on absolute fire for that season where he just started like 9 games in a row and killed it. I've had Richarlison in and out of my teams at all the wrong times. They've just trolled me, Everton in general, so I want to get rid of them for my benefit. That's very selfish, and I'm sorry. So I do hope that happens. I think the result, I think I've got Pope in my team. I think a lot of people go Pope in other fantasy formats as well. Pope's a very good pickup in Sky, for example, this week. So I'm very much going to be biased and be cheering on the 1-0 to Burnley, the classic.
Yep. Excellent. I think that's all the games covered. Very nice. Let's take a look, just before we come into our teams, let's just take a quick look at the captain matrix. This is sort of between now and game week 35, looking at who kind of the best captains are. It's spoilers. It's pretty much all Salah. It's Salah in 31. It's Salah probably in 34 and 35. 32, you've got Kane versus Villa because Salah plays Man City. Still not a bad captain option. I don't even think Kane versus Villa is that good. It's hard to find a captain in 32. I don't mind Saka versus Brighton. Actually, I think Arsenal probably do us over in that game. But
Ronaldo versus Everton's on there.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Ronaldo versus Everton. If you're going to get him in, or Sancho ahead of that 33, you could consider. But 32 is probably the one where you can roll the dice, because I don't think you're going to have too many options to do that between now and the end of the season. Particularly, if Liverpool get a double game week in 36 as well, it's probably almost certainly going to be him again. But this week, I've got Salah as the prime candidate. You have got Weghorst in there, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, these guys. Havertz versus Brentford, Kane versus Newcastle. There are sort of decent options. Like we said, there's good fixtures. Yeah. But if Salah's going to start against Watford, he's surely the best.
Yeah. Kane's, you could say Kane, but Newcastle are a better side than Watford at the moment, and midfielders score more points than strikers. It's as simple as that. And Salah's generally been a better fantasy pick than Kane as well. Yep. I know that he hasn't been performing that well of late, and it's maybe a slight injury doubt, and you can maybe even look at the mental side, because obviously did you see the penalty thing and the fact that they've gone out? I still don't think it matters. I still think you go Salah captain, don't you?
Yeah, looking at, you like the season data more than the 6-game week data. If you look at the season data, Salah is top for goals, 20, assists, 11, minutes per shot in the box, minutes per big chance, minutes per expected goal involvement on penalty, and minutes per points.
Yeah, he's just the best pick in the game, isn't he? And it's nothing's particularly changed. All that's happened really is the outcomes is in the result of his points has been slightly less of late. So that shouldn't be enough to turn us away from him.
Exactly. And even if you look at the last 6, so if you're trying to find, maybe he's dipping in form a little bit, he's still got the best minutes per shot in the box, minutes per big chance, minutes per expected goal involvement by a long way. 72.5 is better than Kane, who's next on the list. He's at 109.1. So just... Yeah, and then finally, if you just look at the data opponents, Watford don't do too badly in this. It's West Ham.
Hodgson's going to set them up ultra defensively.
Absolutely,
there's no debate there. Liverpool are going to have all of the ball.
They frustrated United in that 0-0, but United should have scored plenty of goals in that game. They got the result they wanted.
Just always seems to find a way, don't they?
Yeah,
I mean, Jurassic Park over there.
Exactly. The one thing I will say though is, again, if you Calvert-Lewin, I know it is just a hit and hope type thing, but West Ham's data recently is really, really poor. Their minutes per chance conceded, 5.5 minutes, is worse than like Watford. It's worse than Everton. It's worse than Burnley. I'm pretty sure it's the worst in the league. I mean, conceding a chance every 5.5 minutes is crazy. So, you know,
I think that's more to do with them being Bambi on ice. I think their defenders are more suited to Calvert-Lewin than many others, though, as well. You got Dawson and Zuma and stuff like that, right? They're obviously better aerially, but yeah, they're still giving up chances.
Like my cheat sheet says, though, Calvert-Lewin to me is the only one, but only double gaming option I would even consider bringing.
As a Hail Mary sort of thing, I can see
absolutely.
that. But yeah, it's weird to have a double game week and not captain a double game week. It might be the first time ever that I do that. What about Pope as a captain? Is that really boring? Like, let's say against Everton he gets a clean sheet. Do you treat Man City as a bonus where he probably gets save points even if they get battered?
But what is the best case scenario for Pope, and what's the best case scenario for Salah?
We've seen it with Pope, but save a penalty. You know, it can happen. There is a best case.
He's gonna concede a couple of goals to Man City, and let's say he gets 10 points against Everton. He's gonna get 12, 13 points. Salah could get 4 goals against Watford.
Yeah, fair enough. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah,
I'm still on Salah, but I was just trying to think, can we captain a double game week player?
Yeah, I know. If it wasn't City, and I'd say there was a chance of him getting 2 back-to-back double digits, I'd say consider it. But like you've said before, you just write off that City game for Burnley, right? Their players are going to be lucky to get more than 2 points in that, any of them.
Most likely, yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's talk teams. Let's come to yours first. Do you want to just read your team out for the listeners? Because you've got your best mate that you've been talking about all podcast in goal.
I have Pope, yeah, the main man. Pope in goal. Doherty, I've got Trent in there at the moment, but obviously doesn't look likely he's going to play. Doherty, Trent, Robertson, Salah as captain, Saka, Coutinho and Kulusevski in midfield. I've got Broha, Weghorst and Kane up front.
Pretty template, mate.
I know, and I never said that I didn't do template. I do template. I just occasionally branch out. I've got Tierney sat on the bench, so at the moment he'd obviously come into my team. So again, I don't think that's the worst. I don't really think Arsenal will keep a clean sheet in that game, but you know he's not a terrible pick, is he? Saiss also on the bench, and then Ramsey. My thought process at the moment is because I've got enough money in the bank, is just to go Saiss to James or Cancelo. I do actually prefer Cancelo generally, but like I say, I think there's a little bit more of a risk around him. I need to gauge what the risk is around James and what the news is, but I think one of those two players will probably come in. And even if they do miss out, like either of those players don't play for whatever reason, Tierney comes off the bench, so it's not the worst thing in the world, is it? Like I said, so that's probably my move. And because I'm planning probably to free hit in 33, I'm kind of not really focusing on that game week. I'm sort of looking longer term and bringing in City and Chelsea players and stuff.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, sounds sensible to me. My team, I've got flags. I mean, Ramsdale and Dubravka, so potentially no goalkeeper. I hope one of them is fit, even if it is Dubravka away at Spurs. I'd still play him rather than make a move for another goalkeeper. Really similar team to yours, to be honest. Trent, Robertson, Doherty, Salah, Coutinho, Kulusevski, Saka, Kane, and the only 2 players that are different to yours really are Barnes and Lacazette. Basically, if Trent's out, I'm probably going to move 8 Nori to a Burnley defender. Mostly because I've got the bench boost planned for 33. So if I'm going to do that, I need to get rid of these 2 Wolves players who haven't got a game. So moving for a Burnley player probably makes sense. Not that I'm particularly thrilled by it, but that's probably what I'll do. The other option,
I just talk you through there was a double game week for Burnley earlier in the season, and I thought I'll be clever and get in a Burnley defender, and I got in Loughton when Burnley got 3 clean sheets in a row and nobody had them. And what happened? He didn't play a single minute for the first time. I think he played like 49 consecutive games. That's what happened to me. So I hope Loughton comes back into the team just so you can experience it.
I bet you do. I bet you do as well. Yeah, that's so you, that is.
I need to get you back.
Yes, you're so outcome focused, Luke. Why didn't you have the foresight to know that Loughton was going to be dropped for the first time in like 300 games?
Yeah, I know. To be fair, he was signed apparently. I mean, I didn't really even research it enough, but apparently he was supposed to be the competitor and come into the team, and it was always eventually going to happen. It just happens to be the very game week that I buy him. Do you know who convinced me to do it? Your mate Mark Southerns. He was the one who said to do it.
He's always there, isn't he?
He just wanted to try and beat me, didn't he? I know what his plan was.
Yeah, I mean, the only other move that I am debating is finding a way to get Havertz in. The only way I could really do that would be Coutinho to Havertz, but I'd have to take a hit. I'd have to get rid of someone else. And there isn't really any... I mean, I could lose Lacazette, for example, to like Weghorst, but I don't want Weghorst. And I think Lacazette's all right. He's got Brighton next week and then the double. I could drop Hwang down to like a 5-1. So that's what I'm talking about, like Mateta or Cucho as well. But I mean, that does solve a kind of Wolves striker problem. But I don't know if I want to get rid of Coutinho this week. I don't think that Wolves match is... I think it's quite difficult.
Those transfers are so boring,
isn't it? Well, getting Havertz in is quite exciting.
No, that would be exciting. But the boring things kind of generally does work, doesn't it? So
yeah, I mean, come on, the boring move is Nori to Roberts. That's the boring move. I think the Coutinho to Havertz and switching Hwang to a...
I'm more on board with that, just because I want to see it crash and burn when Havertz doesn't play. But also, if it wins, then you can big yourself up. So I like that play. But yeah, no, don't take any advice from me, mate. You crack on.
yeah. Well, I get the sense that Trent's going to be out, so it will probably be the boring Burnley move, unfortunately. Mark's team. So Mark has got some decisions to be made. He's obviously got the issue with Ramsdale and only Foster as backup. He's got Jimenez, who's got the red card. He's got Trent on the bench. He's got Podence, who's then got that blank coming up, and Say. So he's got 3 Wolves players that he probably needs to deal with. Mark's been all over the place. I've asked him about his team. He's talking about a -8 at one point to bring in like Gordon and Weghorst, which I thought was brilliant.
God,
I know he's going all in on it. Yeah, I don't really know what his plans are going to be. Looking at his team, I mean, I don't think his team looks too bad this week, providing Ramsdale's fit. So
let me tell you, he's definitely getting Weghorst for Jimenez. Me and Mark play very similar for some reason. It just always seems to be our team seems to be similar.
He is definitely getting Weghorst for Jimenez. Yeah, that is.
I actually think he might still get Pope for Ramsdale as well. I don't know whether he's talked through that one, but it might depend on the pricing there. I don't think his budget's great. But yeah, Weghorst for Jimenez is almost a cert. I think that's probably the definite.
Hang on, I've got some. Here you go. I've got a text from him. My transfers could be Jimenez to Weghorst, Ramsdale to Pope.
Oh my God, there you go. And I promise I have not talked to him at all.
Or even a -8 involving Podence to Gordon and Foster to Pope instead. Or a -8 with Podence to Martinelli or Odegaard. I mean, he's losing his mind.
Yeah, I'm glad he mentioned Martinelli though, because we didn't get to talk about him throughout, and he's been your mate this season, hasn't he, as well? But he is just too cheap for what... I know he's been a little bit frustrating with minutes and stuff, but I do think he's in their best team. And he's almost like a starting enabler, if that makes sense, from now to the end of the season, isn't he?
I love him.
His data's great. He's too good of a price. Is he any more of a risk to play than anyone else? I still think, all things being equal, he will play most of the minutes when he's fit and available. It just looks like a ridiculously good pick. We're not going to get him as cheap either. So I do like him as a move in. I think if you were going to pick, your optimum 3 Arsenal, I think Martinelli would probably be in it. It'd be Martinelli, Saka, and another, wouldn't it? I think.
Well, you wish that Martinelli was a striker, really, so he could take out one of these rubbish forward.
Yeah, you kind of do. Yeah.
Because I still think the optimal midfield is Salah, Saka, Kulusevski, Havertz, and then like Barnes probably, or you could maybe replace Havertz with Foden or a Man City, maybe Mahrez if you were feeling ballsy. But would I put Martinelli over any of those players I've just mentioned? Like, would you put Martinelli over Barnes?
Well, I think Son would be in there if you could afford it, right?
Well, yeah, you would, but I don't think you can. You can't have Salah and Kane and Son, I don't think. It's the defenders, right? Because you're going to want Trent, probably Robertson as well, Cancelo, James. You're going to want 3 of those. I
think I'd prefer Martinelli to Kulusevski, but I don't think there's much
in
it. Yeah,
I wouldn't.
I think I prefer him slightly.
I'd keep faith with Kulusevski. Cool. Right. Only a few more things to cover off now. BlackBox Leagues. Again, if you haven't joined the BlackBox League, the code is VJNG38. Come on, let's talk FPL, old slippers. Joachim Lengroth is top, 2,222 points. Had a banging week, 74. I imagine he uses free hit. Noah had a poor week. He's in second, 38 points. Half the points, and has now lost the first place in that league. And Daniel Marston's third. Another great week for him, 75 points. In the Apprentice League, I'm leading. I'm how many points am I ahead of Mark now? 80 something points ahead of Mark. Oh no, more than that. Oh god, I'm like 108. God, I'm miles ahead of Mark. I'm like 180 points ahead of Mark.
I looked before, but the difference between me and you, and it was well above that. So
yeah. That's huge. Natalie's doing really well. I mean, Natalie is only 16 points. That's terrible maths. No, she's 30, 26 points behind Mark. So catchable. Mark is in Natalie's sights. That'd be amazing if she beat him. She's doing FPL content now as well. Check her out. Nice. FPL_Parry on Twitter. Henry missed the deadline, or I don't think he's given up because he's still making moves, but he had Salah captain and Saka vice and didn't make any transfers and only got a couple of players out. So he's nearly 300 points behind Natalie. So it'd be really interesting to check in with Henry to know whether his interest waned or kind of what happened. He used all of his chips really early in the season. We haven't really given him kind of any real attention, but in some ways I think that's quite a good experiment because he's been, he's really engaged.
It stinks of the classic first season, not sure what you're
Absolutely.
doing, which surprises me a little bit because even when I know you tried to make these experiments and stuff, but when you know there's an experiment on you, you'd probably think. Well,
exactly, and he was, something. And when we talked to him at the start of the season, he was really keen to play it properly, beat his work friends. He watches loads of football. He was that perfect kind of candidate to get into it, but he has missed deadlines and used his chips, and
this is literally you're describing your work colleague in a work league every single time. We talked a little bit about football, and after 12 weeks, they haven't got a clue what's going on.
Exactly. But
no offense.
Well, it's true, but I think there's lessons for the Premier League in that, because how do you keep someone like that engaged? They're the people who you want to keep playing, and if we can't even keep Henry sort of active for one season when he's in this experiment and stuff. I think it says something. Whereas Natalie's, just been absolutely brilliant. She's loved getting involved in the community. She's having a really good season, loves all the stats, and that's come from being part of the community, I think. And the community have welcomed her really, really nicely. So it's been a really. I still think, although kind of obviously Mark's health issues and stuff meant we haven't really checked in on them as much as we'd have liked to this season. I still think it's been an interesting experiment for one person to go in deep and the other person not to at all.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he can speak for himself, but I do think there is something in having a target or something to play for in this game. And his target, as far as I'm aware, was basically to beat Natalie or to do well compared to her.
Yeah.
And when that's no longer possible, your interest is naturally going to wane. It's almost like me with FPL. It's like I know I'm not going to do particularly well this season, so I'm doing well in other games. So suddenly I start putting attention
you
that
could
way.
see really early on that his decision making wasn't like what you'd it is kind of what you'd expect, but it wasn't optimal play. Like he used triple captainship on Salah against United, for example, and that paid off massively.
But I was going to say,
but like he used it in a single game, and I was like, oh, why has he done that? Then he used like another two chips in the weeks after, and then there's been kind of certain decision making that he hasn't. I just think it shows it takes people quite a while to work out what to do and when if they're not massively involved in Twitter.
Definitely. If you're not going to be in like mini leagues and stuff like that, which you focus on, then very much the focus is looking at your overall rank, isn't it? And if you're not that bothered about that, then this is why we all play this game, or most of us play this game, is our obsession over something like overall rank. So if he's not got that, then it's easy to see why people drop off.
Yep, agreed. I want to mention the North versus the South as well. You might have noticed that I'm drinking from my tankard, like I normally do, with a nice beer in it. But here's the secret. 0%. I'm on the old 0% beers.
What's the point of that, boys? Why has he not just got an orange squash in there, for God's sake?
I've also got a blackcurrant squash.
There you go.
No, they're all actually the Prodi one's not. It grew on me. It was pretty nasty. But yeah, I'm in training. I'm cutting down on the booze. I'm trying to get fit so I don't completely embarrass myself in this. If anyone's interested, the price reveals have happened. I'm a 4-5 defender. So nice and budget option. Raptor has been priced, I think, as the most expensive player ever in
is he handy? Is
kind
he?
of? Well, he's an ex-academy player.
Hell. Okay, fair enough.
So yeah, anyone was at Fest might have seen him do. Fantasy 5 brought along a wall with holes in it. You had to kick the ball through the holes,
right?
And he won like the tournament because he just every shot he did just went through one of the holes.
Fair play.
So he's on the South team, so it's worth coming along just to cheer on Raptor. And there'll be me with my hernia at right back, getting mugged off by Hindu Monkey.
how much is fitness going to make up for a lack of talent?
Well, probably
it
not.
Worked for Lee Cattermole.
Probably not much, but if I haven't got fitness and I've got a lack of talent, then there's a real problem there. You know.
No, fair enough. We can only work at what we're given, can't we?
Exactly. Yeah. So if you are interested, you should definitely come along to it. It's on Saturday, 28th of May. It's up in Birmingham, in the Midlands, which is appropriate because it's a North and South game. All the money from the tickets goes to Street Child United, and there's links to that in the description to this YouTube video below. The final thing I just want to touch on is the Green Arrow charity that Mark and I donate to. Every time we get a green arrow, it was originally going to feed starving people around the world, but obviously with the Ukraine crisis, it's now going towards emergency aid in the Ukraine. I just want to thank everyone that's been kind of donating to this, because they've raised 1,372 meals since we started, and that's due to people getting involved in that, and that's all set up by FPL Greece. So huge shout out to him. So if you want to make any donations to that, again, links in the description below. If you want to carry on to the end of the season, donating when you get a green or a red arrow, or kind of however you want to play it, then feel free to do that. It's a really good charity, and obviously going to a really worthy cause with everything that's going on in the world at the moment. I think though, Luke, that is it from us. Thanks for joining me. It's been great having you on, as always.
No problem.
Good to be back.
Yeah, no, enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on. It's going to become a more regular thing, isn't it, for the next few weeks, or is that up for debate still?
I have absolutely no idea. I mean, there's no reason why we can't do it, the three of us. I don't know if I don't know when Mark's going to return. But yeah, you're more than welcome to join us as and when. It's next week you can't do on the Wednesday, right?
let's just discuss this online right now. Yeah, should I get my work schedule out? No, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll
work it out. I don't know what the status is going to be. It all just depends on how he's feeling. So you're both a backup for if we do it the two of us, but you're also welcome to join us as a three as well.
Nice one. Been a pleasure.
We'll work it out. Lovely. Great. So final plug. If you haven't liked the video, make sure you do. Subscribe to the channel. If you're listening onto the podcast version, check out the YouTube video and look at the links, to the charity and the North and the South game as well. But for now, I'll say goodbye and thanks for watching.